I hope everyone has had time to have some coffee. I hate to break up the chats. I know this is also an important part of these kinds of gatherings, but we are heading towards lunch. So if you have a conversation now that is unfinished, please try and wrap it up and continue it over lunchtime. Sorry, guys. Got to keep this train moving. So we had a great few sessions. I was able to kind of float in and out. I apologize for not being able to stay at all three, but this is our wrap-up session. So without further ado, I'm actually going to pass the mic over to Angela, who was in the Peru session, for some feedback and report back to the entire group.
Thank you. And first, I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated in the Peru Forestry Group. It was really helpful for me, and I look forward to taking forward a number of the suggestions that I received. One of the key suggestions had to do with making sure that we will have a sufficient number of beneficiaries under a competitive grant program that we're designing. And we received some really good feedback in terms of maybe not being as restrictive in our eligibility criteria. That right now we're thinking about excluding people who are currently receiving conservation support in the districts we're supporting, and that maybe the support they're getting would be complementary to the project support, and taking a better look at that. There was another suggestion that maybe we want to open it up and test and bring in some people who wouldn't comply with the criteria. There was an agency said that by doing that, they've really learned been able to pinpoint where changes need to be made in eligibility criteria and how to design a competitive grant program, and that's helped them a lot. Also received some good suggestions on sustainability, because this project has a big focus on strengthening entrepreneurship of landholders, making sure that we really have the right people to provide the support. We're working with the Ministry of Environment, who probably doesn't have the tools or the wherewithal to provide the support that landholders will need on the ground. So making sure that we do that right. So thank you again. Really appreciate everyone's support.
And then also in the Peru session, we have a wonderful and kind volunteer who said he would be happy to share a few reflections on his experience. If you can give us your name and where you're from.
Thank you very much. I am Mr. Mohamed Jaite from the Gambia. It was a very, interesting, educative, forum that we had. And then all the people participated in the discussions of, the challenges, and then as well as the mechanisms and then strategies that are put in place, or that are suggested, to mitigate, those challenges. But the most interesting part of it all was, the enterprise aspect of it, which is, the forest-based, the enterprises, especially, in the areas of, non-timber forest products, which will at least, ensure sustainability, because wood-based, would, at least create an avenue for, the removal of, the trees. But with the enterprises on, the non-timber-based forest products, especially, on fruits, and then as well as ecotourism, would ensure the sustainability. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the Peru session, or who was in the Peru session, who wants to feed something back to the entire group? This is a learning lab, and this is all about sharing. And so if there was something that disrupted your preconceived notions or was a bit surprising that you think is worthwhile with sharing with your colleagues here, this is the time to do it. Any eager hands going up? I don't see anybody. Okay, I'll let you off the hook right now. I know I'm keeping you from lunch. So why don't we move to the Zambia session? We have two lovely volunteers, forced volunteers, who are going to report back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Alice from Ministry of National Development Planning, Zambia. On the case of Zambia, amidst the success that was actually shared, a few highlights on the challenges that are encountered as we implement climate change projects. One of them was the aspect of bureaucracy. Now, what is our take-home message? One of them was encourage interface amongst all key players as we try to implement projects to do with climate change effectively. There's an aspect of also identifying champions at all levels, and as well as invest more in the issues of capacity building at all levels, because what we identified is that we may not just align ourselves, for instance, just at the bottom to provide capacity, but we needed to have a capacity on all layers. I thank you.
Good morning. We had a wonderful session. Chitembo Chunga from the project office itself, but also based in the Ministry of National Development Planning. It was very informative and free information really given to us. And we're really seeing, coming from the project office, it's really going to enhance how we do our operations. One of the things we learned from colleagues who were in the House was how do we bring on board the social system that is in the project area so that we don't really need to work with the legalized system, so that we respond effectively to the needs of the people on the ground, to the communities that we're working with. I feel that for me it's one of the greatest takeaways. And also the community and the non-government organizations, how do we align them with the government system so that there's feedback also given by the community itself, feedback being given by the government staff, so that the non-government organizations that are working with the communities do not do things as they wish or as they want to do in trying to bridge the gap between the inadequate staffing levels that are there. So that is very encouraging to us, and we really think that having been in this lab, it's going to help us do things a lot more differently, but for better results. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone from the Zambia session who'd like to share something that they took away that hasn't been discussed? No one, don't be shy. Really? Oh, come on. Do I have to be aggressive and thrust a mic into somebody's face? Yes? Would you like to share? All right, what group were you in?
The Peruvian case.
Oh, okay. You want to just give your last?
Well, if you give me the mic, wasn't good. No, the only I have to leave before they finish. But I made a comment about the day after the project finished, and it's been my concern for many years. What is it we are leaving there beyond the project? I mean, how do we ensure empowerment, local empowerment? I made the case that we should not invest so much in the central level institutions as much as in the local ones, local governments, local authorities, and create this sense of empowerment and continuation. The other of my basically themes is think about programs and not projects. So what is the long-term or mid-term at least sustainability of all these efforts, and making sure we don't create what I call this kind of artificial scenarios where everybody's very happy while the project is ongoing, but again, the day after, everything goes down because in most cases, the platform for the future wasn't built. So what about sustainability in few words? So.
Anyone else? So why don't we just move to Cambodia? I think, Tich, are you here somewhere? Yeah. It's going to give us some reflections.
Thank you. I think for me it was a great privilege to sit in this group, because I was struck by the similarity between some of these challenges that we are experiencing on the African continent and what is being experienced in Asia. Because if you are not exposed to this, you think that the challenges that you are facing are unique to yourself. But the challenge is similar, because they are battling with resistance from the state actors for the adoption of renewable energy, and then the procurement, the debate between unsolicited bids and solicited bids, and high energy costs, low access to energy. And this, and also the fact that the Cambodia's energy sector seems to have been to be still in its infancy compared to some of the energy entities on the African continent. So that was quite interesting. But I was also impressed by the solutions that were suggested, particularly on the creation of energy parks where the government de-risks take some of the upfront risk in terms of developing solar, in terms of developing the infrastructure that is supporting infrastructure, like the case where they took up the risk for the land acquisition and construction of the transmission and linking to demand centers. That was quite an innovative idea, which I think we will also be promoting and supporting in our interventions on the continent. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Did I see a hand somewhere? Am I missing? Is there another country representative who took away something as Tich did that he or she may want to apply in their own context? I see lots of finger pointing going on. Come on, guys, really. This is informal. We're still under Chatham House rules. This is not broadcast. This is oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Lad Cannell, Bank Information Center. One thing we discussed are different forms of incentives that can be provided to landowners. First of all, tenure is key, so establishing property rights and not rights just to the property, but to the things that are on it, so the trees, the carbon, and so on. But there are, generally when we think of incentives, we think of cash payments, but it doesn't have to be cash payments. You can have also reductions in taxes that are put on the land. You can also have in-kind services, helping to manage the land that people own. So the government can provide some support in kind. And then there's also the negative incentive of enforcement and staying with the rules of the program that are helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? I saw a few I see a smiling gentleman there. Thank you.
I want to speak French. Thank you. Je vais parler français.
I'm going to speak in French. Yesterday, we had a meeting during which I wanted to speak, but
Do you have a translation?
there is interpretation.
I need to speak about gender issues, our session about gender. But we haven't so much time. Now I want to say just something. Gender issues must be addressing carefully, because if you look all aspects, man, woman, chicken, elephant, all aspects, we have natural capacities, a natural repartition of roles. You see the chicken, cock, pool. So we have something which is natural. We must consider that issues. It's what GDI is teaching us. And then when you address gender issues, you must consider the context, cultural context, Sometimes we think that religion can be a problem for gender issue. No, I don't know one religion which is not haven't considered gender issues. I don't know. Muslim, Christians, Hindu, we consider gender issues. If you read our religion document. Now, what in climate change issues, what you must know, a woman have a potential of capacity to programmatic action. Now, gender, women are, Peter, when climate change is a shock, when you have a shock, sometimes women can't respond. They want to see what the man will do. But sometimes men haven't a proactive action. Just an example. When we have socialists in our countries, men leave women with children, they go to other countries, but women stay. It means that women have a good potential of proactivity in front of a climate change shock. So it's why now the gender issues must be considered not to participate women in our implementation. No, women are a good solution because they have more capacity, proactive capacity in climate change to adaptation to resilience. I don't know if I must explain it more clearly in French, but.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I think that's a part of a much longer conversation. But if I understand you correctly, yeah, I guess you're making the argument of gender. Well, I hope we all agree that gender should not be an add-on, as we've discussed at the end of the panel. And so, but you want to kind of take into consideration the natural abilities. You know what, maybe this is too difficult to dive into right now, right before lunch. But yeah, dangerous, yeah. So maybe I'm not going to keep you, or actually, yeah, if someone else wants to try and respond.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, this was actually supposed to be our report back from the delivery session, so maybe we'll steer that back, but thank you for that, yeah.
So rather than going into some of the specific aspects of the session that I was in, I'm actually curious about the delivery lab method, and if that has any carryover, if that's something that is of benefit to everybody here in a way to look at problems and identify solutions. So that's actually, it's really sort of an open question because I'm curious about the methodology of engagement and the and that methodology's ability to help communities to identify the solution. So maybe somebody can speak about that. That's my question.
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you, Manzoor Man from the World Bank. Well, I was in that session for Cambodia solar energy intervention, and it was a great learning experience for me. And the way the problem was introduced, and also the government was convinced, and all the systematic approach that was followed, and with the inclusive approach that the ADB adopted, basically. And in the end, you know, it was a wonderful win-win situation, win-win outcome of that solar park and solar energy intervention. And I'm sure that would be an example which will be followed in other developing countries also. Thank you.
That's great. Can anyone else respond to the the delivery methodology question. Oh, great.
And I will be very quick, and I can have an offline discussion with you. In GDI, we have been organizing this since last 1 year. And in our view, it's every time we are really amazed the amount of candor, the amount of openness that this discussion brings in, and the international flavor also that comes in. So as you can see, that it's not it's not that we are inventing something unique. It's basically, for us, the challenge is to have that safe space. That's where we come in. And also for us, we do a lot of behind the scene preparation with the challenge holders, because we want those challenges, most of the times, little non-technical. So it's not directly about finances. It's not directly about those technical, little bit non-technical issue. Also the questions, how to make it really focused. So these are the things that we have learned, and we have had quite a few, and I can have a more detailed discussion with you. We do it face-to-face, as well as we can do it webinar-based. So it's zero cost, very scalable. And whenever even we've done it webinar-based, still the same spirit, the same outcome.
This is not working. Oh, here we are.
Thank you. I'm Vincent from St. Lucia. I was in the Zambia lab, and coming out of that, I recognized that the programs that we have been implementing, sometimes there's a sort of a disconnect in terms of continuity, especially if we have a change in our government. And listening to what they were suggesting, in that you have local community committees, and you drill it right down to that local level, it then allows for the program to continue. Especially if you then have quarterly meetings that allow persons to, the donors or persons to interact, to get to understand how those projects are going. So for instance, in St. Lucia right now, I know we have challenges in that one of the projects that we're running, you know, the drawdown, as it were, out of the funds has been slow. So and everybody's wondering, well, why and what's happening? And I know it's because people have changed and personnel have changed. And the new person has to wonder, okay, what am I really supposed to do, and so on. So we have a new project that I'm trying to drive and looking at green affordable housing and moving flood-prone individuals out of flood-prone areas to higher ground and building new communities. And it will therefore mean that we have to build it from the community level and understand if we want to move those persons, do they want to move, and you know, and build it right out until we get to the donor, so that they know that they're going to, the persons who have to actually benefit will do so, and do so in a systematic way, especially like how they did it in Zambia. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? I know we're keeping you from lunch, so I guess we can wrap this up, wrap up the wrap-up, and just remind you that at 1:30 we have a very good panel on the private sector engagement in climate action. So I urge you not to just eat and think that's the end of the day, because there's still really some good programming and some great speakers on that panel. So 1:30 back here. But I would just say that just from floating through the sessions, I do feel like this point that you've made about the participatory approach of the delivery methodology, I really do think that must be the key, and I'm sure that feels like a theme that kind of cut across all the sessions that I was able to observe. So I hope that's food for thought for everyone. Bon appetit, and we'll see you in an hour. Thank you.